gotta be. I ain't living in your fantasy, and I'll be real if it's the death of me. I'ma be who I gotta be, and I don't care who you pretend to be, cause I'll be real if it's the death of me.
Buy one from Jeep. I'm gonna make it myself. That's how you know.
Yeah, that's personalized right there.
Yeah,
that's a marketing tactic.
Yeah, I'll even get you a holographic Jeep sticker. I don't know, and then I'll just stick it on the t-shirt for you.
Chef's kiss.
I'm blown away already, and I haven't even received my package yet.
You got it, Jeff.
When do you think it's gonna be here, Kenny?
Christmas.
When can I expect this?
Yeah, we can.
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. All right, sounds good. Better be here.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy it. But speaking of things that like people enjoy, the one thing that I really wanted to talk about today was like, it's a common topic with, I think, in all of our industries, and especially this time of year, because weather sucks, especially like where I am. So people get cold, and I think seasonal, they call it SAD. It's like seasonal anxiety disorder. Yeah. But that leads to a huge factor of burnout at jobs and lack of motivation. So I was like, I really wanted to ask you guys, have you guys ever experienced burnout not just in your job, but in other aspects of your life?
Yeah, I'll start off like while I'm thinking about the question and say like, number one, I have definitely experienced burnout. I feel like I even went through it in a phase like this year. And sometimes I didn't know it until after I got out of it, like lack of motivation, or I was tired, or maybe I was like cranky or, agitated easily, like those types of things. Like for a person like myself, I may not notice it in the moment that I'm like either depressed or sad.
So I think burnout goes hand in hand with depression.
Yeah. That's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah. I mean, would you say that burnout leads to depression?
I think both. I think it can go both ways.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because I definitely think in the work sense, I think, things in your personal life can bleed into work, right? Mm-hmm. And they can lead to burnout. But also, I think it's a two-part play, because what you're dealing with at work can also affect your mentality outside of work.
100%. Yeah.
You can be overstressed. But yeah, I agree. I think most of the time when you don't realize it in the moment that you're burned out, or if you don't know the signs to look for, right? Like, are you cynical at work, or do you wake up dreading going to work, right? Like, is it hard for you to turn on the laptop to get started?
Yeah.
Do you not have energy? Can you, is it hard to concentrate? There's a lot of things. Like, are you disillusioned with your job? That's a really big one.
And this is probably even more so a good topic right now, just because of everything that's like going on. Like, I don't know how generations, before us feel, or even the younger generation that's in school, but I feel like our generation has kind of been through like a couple things at the start of our life. Like 2008, or let's go back, 2001, that was like the start of our life, and we experienced like the 9/11 attacks. Like if we go back to 2008, that's when like the recession and stuff like that happened. There's been like so many things. I mean, like we've gone through a depression, a recession. Sure. Right now, the economy's going crazy. All the layoffs, like there's so many things I feel like that's happened that like we're probably naturally like more depressed or not happy because of everything in our life is going bad. But crazier.
Well, I have a different theory about that. But Los, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's almost like we're kind of immune to it, or gaining, some callous to it.
There's definitely a layer of desensitization. Like the more that we see things, the more that things happen, like we start becoming desensitized to it. For me, it's like I definitely experienced burnout at like my first job out of college, when I didn't feel like I had any growth or any room for improvement. And so I wasn't, not knowing, when that there's not much potential in your role, you feel stuck.
Yeah.
And then that's like one way. But the biggest thing, I didn't know that I was burned out, right? It was just mostly I was depressed because I had felt like I had no direction. I didn't know where I wanted to go. The real moment where I understood what burnout was, and knew that I was burnt out and I had to leave, is during COVID. Actually, I think COVID changed a lot, and I think a lot of people also experienced similar things, right? you're forced to do a whole new just like a whole new routine, right? It shut everything down. Everyone's forced to be in the same room, um, same house. Like you can't do anything, you can't go out. Everyone was so used to, everyone had their routine set, and everything, COVID shook everything up.
Yeah.
And I think that at that time I was with the company for a few years, but it just got to the point where I realized I'm not happy, and like I'm burnt out. Like I wake up, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to lift. I don't, and I'm not going to blame the company, right? I think there's a lot of factors in it that happened, but for me, the solution that I chose was I needed to look for something else, and I needed to find a different, like another environment to energize me and to like remotivate me. Now, do I think that that company probably I could have found a role within the same company? I probably could have, and I probably could have stayed energized. But for me, like that, the path that I chose was to leave, and personally, like it paid off. Like I think that's just the route that I took. I think there's a lot of different solutions you could take to burnout or solution. Like, what are some things that you guys have had that, like in your experiences, that have gotten you out of burnout or
Yeah.
helped you like refine motivation? This doesn't have to be a work related thing, right? Like,
Yeah. I think most recently, like we previously talked in the past, like we talked about when you first land that entry level role, or not even necessarily entry level role, but you're in that probationary phase with a new company. And some people are this way, not everybody, but you don't want to give off a certain image, or you don't want to be the person to start turning down work or giving people doubt that you are a reliable employee or whatever, so you take on more tasks than usual. So recently, like I've kind of realized it in the space that we're in now, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if y'all got any feedback on this, but like in tech, especially with smaller companies, it's almost like this unspoken conversation to where it's like, um, we all know that we have clients. There's like two things that we establish here. We all know that we have clients and we have a business to run. We also know that we have personal lives outside of this. But at the same time, like there's still that gray area to almost where it's like the business will trump your personal life, and that tends to get overlooked. When we got calendars and, oh, I saw you had a lunch scheduled for this time, but a client just reached out, and so I mean, yeah, you need to take a lunch break and you have a lunch break, but like let's be serious, let's be real here, man. This is a touch point we need to have, blah blah blah, whatever. Simply put, like there's times that like the business just trumps. And
it,
when you allow it to, it will always trump.
yep,
So like it
it's a
almost
good
becomes
point.
a norm to where like now you are accommodating your life around, you know what I'm
Your
saying?
work.
Like
Yeah,
I think there's a healthy balance between the two, but like you do a lot of accommodating to where it's like, oh, I'll take a break whenever I can. Some days I don't take a lunch. Some days I build for 8 hours. Some days I work 8 hours. Some days I work 10. Like how is that? And it's because to me there's like that gray area to where it's like, yeah, we all say, hey, we're working to live, not living to work. But then at the same time, it's like we got stuff to get done. It's just the
yeah.
reality. From the companies that I've been at so far. So I haven't even really wrapped my mind fully around that yet, but I definitely was just recently thinking about that. I'm like, man, I've had a couple long days. I've skipped a couple lunches. Not by any means am I saying that, the company is bad or anything. It's just like the reality is just like, the company knows like we got work to get done. We got clients we got commitments, and yeah, just kind of that. I think that thought process contributes to you not even realizing they're like, oh man, I haven't thought about me in a while. Now you look up, oh man, now I'm not like feeling so hot about what I do. Now I'm questioning, my career path. Now I'm questioning my happiness. When's the last time I did something for myself? So it's just like an easy, slippery slope that like, yeah, that's a great point that should be surfaced regularly.
Right. It
Because
definitely
Yeah,
does
it's so
trickle
easy.
over too.
It's
Yeah.
so
it
easy.
triples. And I want to chime in on this because I think what you said is really interesting, and I think this is a trap that a lot of people get into. It's at the end of the day, like work is still going to be there,
Yeah.
right? Your family's not though. Like there's so many, like I mean, shit, look at Tom Brady, right, for example, right?
Mhm.
Like football, he came back to it, he lost his family. I know that's a generalization. Like there's things that probably went on, but
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, you don't want to take work into your family, like into your home life. And and that's something that's a pressure that I think a lot of people feel in tech, and other jobs too. But like I've experienced it before in tech where it's like, oh, I'm so worried about this deadline. I have to get this done. So
Yeah.
I'll work after hours or I'll put in more work. But the reality is like you wake up the next morning, it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
And so it's you like once I came to terms with that, I actually had a senior uh coworker who pulled me aside and like, we went out for a beer, and he really instilled like that mantra, like that lesson that work's always going to be there. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to feel the pressure to work more. Like you do what you can do during work hours and what you can control. The work can't, it's unfair for them to set the expectation that you need to work more, right? And companies, if you're not getting paid, if you're not getting paid overtime for it, if like, then it's why the hell are you going to work off hours, right? Like
That's a
it's
good point. Yeah. I definitely I wanna highlight or really like touch on the fact that like there's some people that, and I'm not saying that they're not capable of it. Maybe they just haven't yet, worked in one of those positions to where um, it's a determining factor, the amount of work that you get done.
yep.
So I've been in a lot of jobs and I've worked with a lot of people who have those type of jobs and mentalities, no matter what job they're at. It's like, hey, that clock is up, I'm gone. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
there's certain roles, right? When I was overseas, that job right there, man, man, if I wasn't done, I'm not leaving
Oh
until
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't. You can't.
No,
Because
for sure.
I think there's definitely a defined line between, what types of roles you can have that thought process in. And then I also don't want to really shy away from the fact that there are perks in times that, that extra push, that extra nudge, and like, having that sort of discipline can be rewarding. I don't necessarily want to just shy away from, putting in a little extra work. It's a healthy balance, right? But yeah, just definitely wanted to put that out there because I want people to be like, oh yeah, man, you know what? They right. Life, work, life. Get that promotion, man. It's time for me to go. Sometimes
Yeah.
if it takes you putting in a little overtime, if it takes you, pushing your performance maybe an extra 10%,
Yeah.
it's up to you, whether or not you want to hash that out.
No, for sure. There's definitely, I think this is mostly like it's not reliant to every industry, right? There's a lot of industries where you have to work. Like I think in finance, you have to work. You're going to put in a bunch of weeks. If you're a CPA, you're working like 80-hour weeks. Like you have to. That's just the nature of it. But
Death by Excel.
if there's going to be times when you're going to put in extra work, but you can't let, as soon as you feel like if you get pressured to do something like more than than what you were expected, or like like people are going to start expecting that.
Yeah.
And so like you have to set boundaries with work. Like so there's a time and place to put in more work, do extra. Like sometimes you want to see a task done. Sometimes I'll do that. I'm like, okay, I was on this train of thought. I'm going to continue until I finish it.
Mhm.
But it's when it becomes an expectation that everyone does that, everyone meets those standards, everyone works longer hours. That's when it's an issue. That's when it leads to burnout. It's because at the end of the day, we're a number to companies. They're trying to squeeze as much out. Like some companies will squeeze as much out of you as they can, and they don't care about the person behind like the work.
Yeah.
And so it's healthy to set boundaries for that,
That's
because
so
that's a
hard.
huge,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it is because it's like you're worried, oh, I might lose my job, but it's not like you're slacking, right? If it's just you yourself can identify what a healthy boundary for you is, right? Like where we all are, you're going to work, like that's what having a job means. Like we're going to do work, but it's just sometimes like in you have to also recognize if you're in a bad position as well. I think so. Some companies are guilty of
Yeah.
overworking their employees. I wouldn't say everyone does, but it's kind of hard to identify when you're in that situation if you don't have like a good frame of reference either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
And
what
so
I'm
like,
hearing, like
yeah,
you say, is like it's like subjective in a
it
couple
is.
different ways, though. So, like how I think about it is number one, like a CPA knows during tax season that I'm going to work way too much. That is
Yeah.
something that they're like, hey, I'm willing to have this job, so I have this expectation, and I'm willing to deal with it. I might complain about it, but this ultimately will make me happy. Like doctors, I know doctors that work like, 3 12-hour shifts or 18-hour
Mhm.
shifts or whatever it is throughout the week. Even though we just did that overseas, I'm not built for that. Like that's not what I want to do. I'd rather work 9 to 7 every single day and be able to go to sleep at night, not having to be on call. Like I don't want to be on call ever.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to work the extra hours for my mental health rather than working an 18-hour day for my mental health. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little subjective on the balance of what you're talking about on like what makes you happy, what
Mhm.
doesn't bring you to burnout. So yeah, if you're burning out in your job, maybe you're at the wrong job, or maybe you just haven't, like you said, like set the expectations
Yeah.
correctly. um
It really
I know,
depends, yeah, on like the factors that lead to your burnout, I guess.
yeah, and I feel like most managers now understand that they have to care for their employee. Whether they do or not is one thing, but most
Mhm.
managers understand that. So if someone's working you like crazy, you probably signed up for a job where they had the expectations that they would work you like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely things to look out for in the interview process.
Yeah.
There's red flags, like especially when companies say, um, like everyone does like responsibility. I don't know what the best way to put it. When like recruiters or job managers say like everyone um, does responsibilities that are outside of their role,
Yeah.
that's like
Oh,
that's a
really?
code word for we're understaffed and people are having to do other people's work.
Yeah.
They
Like
got
there's definitely,
expectation.
yeah,
They got expectation for something that's not even truly defined.
yeah, there's code words around it. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think the biggest thing in importance for like is you have to, if you can't afford to take the time, you can find like a good environment for you,
Yeah.
right? The manager direct report relationship is so important with like happiness at a job.
Yeah.
Like if you because your manager is going to be the number, probably one of the most people that you interact with, your manager and your teammates. If you have a good manager relationship, I'm more likely to stay at a company because I like my manager. And the biggest traits, and everyone has different traits they look for. Like for me, I look for empathy, like in my teammates and in my manager, and like can they help me grow? Can they fill in the knowledge gaps that I have, and like can they lead me in the right way?
That's huge.
Well,
Yeah.
all right.
But
So you mentioned one. Like, what other traits do you look for? Let's say your manager, as well as like your work culture, leadership. Like, what are traits that you look for in a dream job? Um, and let's go aside from like the responsibilities part, but just
yeah,
more so like culture and leadership.
yeah,
You,
it's like, so if I'm looking for a new job, uh I treat the I ask a lot of questions during the interview process. And because like after all my jobs now, one thing I would say to like anyone who's looking for a job or anyone who's working right now is keep a mental note or actually like a written down list of things that you like and things that you don't like at your current position or at previous positions. That way you always know what to look for. Like you always know what you're chasing in the next position. So like I always have questions. So think about things that went wrong or things that like really bothered you at a previous position. Ask that question in your next interview. How do you handle this situation? And or like if or like how do you communicate this? What's your communication style? What's your managerial style? So like or like how does problem solving get done between teammates? A lot of stuff like this. Like because I find that those questions are more beneficial during the interview process because they help you learn about your day to day. They help you learn about things that you might be concerned with in the past.
sure.
So like that's what I really look for in a company. It's like how does the team collaborate? What does communication look like? What I ask my manager if I'm on the manager call, like what's your managerial style? And then they usually will ask me like how do you like to be managed? And then so like both like having both those questions answered because everyone has a certain way they like to be managed. How do you like to be coached is another way to say it, right?
Yeah.
um and
Yeah.
so you have to find a style that matches yours.
Yeah. I always ask that. How does like the team collaborate together? I'm trying to see like how the boss interacts with the team, as well as like, hey, do like team members actually talk to each other to help each other?
Yep.
Do you cross collaborate with other departments and stuff like that to see like if it's cohesive or if it's super siloed? Typically, if it's super siloed,
That's a
then
bad job.
yeah,
I think that's a leading factor to burnout too, is when
Yeah.
you feel like you're
you're by
stranded.
yourself, you're stranded, you can't learn anything, depend
Yep.
on anybody else. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, collaboration is huge for me at least. Those are some of the biggest factors when I look at a company. And um just like being able to talk to team members and ask them questions, get their vibe. Like you can glean a lot from just a conversation, and you could really see how they feel about their job. Are they hesitant to answer things about their job and their company? They probably have second thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Or and sometimes if they're too overeager, that it can go both ways, right? Like I see overeagerness or like too much love for a company as a bad sign. I've worked at companies where there's way too much hype for the company and everyone thought it was the best thing, it was God's gift on earth. And I was cynical about it. I was like, I don't enjoy it as much as you. I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid,
Man, he hit. I was smiling, Leo, because he's hitting on like he's preaching right now, man. He's on fire.
Because in my opinion, sometimes I think it's a good strategy to hire people. You hire impressionable young professionals,
Yeah.
and you sell them on hype essentially.
Mhm.
And it motivates them. You keep them motivated, because as long as you have motivated workers, you're going to get work done.
That rah mentality. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Hey,
It
man,
works. It can work though.
and that's so huge though, because when it comes to like a real, I don't know if y'all have it right now. We don't even have to be talking. We don't even have to limit it to like a professional setting. But when you got a true leader, man, I feel like you can really do anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Good leaders are underrated.
because like I've thought back at some of my accomplishments and things that I've overcame, and it's like before completing that, I would probably told you ain't no way in the world, right? But you got somebody that break it down for you in a consumable steps, somebody to give you the motivation, somebody to give you the platform and the the safe space to be able to practice and learn something before you master it, stuff like that. That is so vital. And like that's what I look for, man. Like, so to your point, talking about collaboration, when you was talking about, I was like, oh man, he on fire, because like you have it's a reality. It's a reality. Sometimes you have, there's, to me, I'll just call it, there's two sides to the coin, maybe more depending on your circumstances or where you came from, but two sides to the coin, right? You have the transparent leaders, seniors, whatever you want to call them, that are willing to roll with the punches, willing to help you iron out issues, details, miscommunications, whatever. But on the other side of that, there's that one guy or gal, that's, you don't know that. Like that's you should have learned this at X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, the condescending nature. That's
the belittling.
the belittling.
It's the reality, right? Because like we can talk. I heard this concept recently in tech. I don't know why I hadn't heard it yet. They called it a certification farm. Y'all heard of that?
No.
They said my job is. They said at this company we are not a certification farm. Which a certification farm is companies that promote you or require you to go out and get a bunch of certifications. I think y'all may have came across plenty of IT professionals who've got, let's call it 10X.
Yo, thank you for tuning into the P.E.A.C.E podcast. This podcast actually started off with 4 friends sitting around a table once a week. We were having conversations to educate ourselves about the world around us, talking about what we're dealing with day to day as regular people, and simply to self-reflect. So that's all that you're seeing us do here, and you're getting to see it live. So I challenge you to do the same thing. If you've made it this far, obviously something caught your attention. So get a group of friends and build a small community and start to join in the conversation. Like, these are tough conversations, these are fun conversations, but these are conversations that are needed to be had. In fact, I want to make it easy for you. If you're listening to this podcast at home, invite a friend over. or maybe invite 2 friends over, 3 friends over, whatever it is. Turn your TV on, your computer, your phone, wherever you want to watch it, turn the podcast on, okay? And join in the conversation. If you're listening to this maybe on run, at the gym, I get it. I do the exact same thing. Maybe you can share the link, clip the file or something like that, and just pose one of the questions that you heard here today. The point is to build community and to self-reflect. Oftentimes we don't vocalize the things that we need to work on, and that's one small way that I think that we can, help improve ourselves, improve others, and most importantly, pursue excellence and cherish everyone. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you again next week. Peace.